The next time she visited, the gravestone had changed. It looked the same, worn and crumbling, with the name of her sister still deep in the rock. But the words were different. It said, "Warning. This is a horror podcast. It may disturb you. Be careful."
PseudoPod, episode 830, September 30th, 2022. This week's story, The Honey Witch, by Catherine McMahon. Hello everyone, welcome to PseudoPod, the weekly horror podcast. I'm Alistair, your host. Our audio production for this week is by the amazing Marty Perrette, and our story comes to us from Catherine McMahon. Catherine is a queer cross-genre writer living in Montana with her spousal unit. She can usually be found in the woods, her garden, or in the kitchen making gluten-free treats. Her prose has appeared in Black Warrior Review, Lunar Station Quarterly, Podcastle, and elsewhere. You can find more of her writing at darkandsparklystories.com and follow her on Twitter at Catascope, and, of course, we will make sure those links are in the show notes. Your reader for this week is Rhianna Pratchett. Take a moment. I had to. Rhianna Pratchett is an astoundingly talented narrator and one of the most profound forces for good in game design in the Western world. That sounds like hyperbole. It really, truly is not. Pratchett's work has been inspirational to a vast amount of game creators, including me, and it is an incredible honor to have her here. Thank you so much for doing this for us. So, without further ado, we have a story for you, and we promise you, it's true.
The Honey Witch by Catherine McMahon, read by Rhianna Pratchett. My hood and gloves are on the table next to the smoker that for now remains unlit. Its charred pine needles quiet the bees and mask their alarm, a perfume that smells improbably of bananas. I don't need the smoker at the moment, and if I used it I wouldn't be privy to the hive's secrets. I sniff. Wafts of apple linger with thyme that grows beneath the orchard rose, and lemon, the Nazanoff pheromone calling the bees back home. Usually a few would be dancing now, telling their sisters about the nectar they have found. But just as my sinuses throb, the bees feel the air pressure dropping. A storm is on its way. Even down here in my basement I can hear gravel crunch and a car door slam. I head up to my living room, which also holds my little shop. The road stops at my house, the only one all the way up here, but sometimes tourists passing through see my signs along the highway. I don't like people, but I can read them as easily as I can read the bees. I always know if they are going to buy my honey. Sometimes I can tell what kind of arguments they're going to have about it if they do when they see my prices. I look at their clothes, at their car, and try to connect it back to them. Would they pay $30 for a bottle of wine that would only last them the night? Yes, well, my honey is going to last so much longer. Serve it with goat's cheese or brie, baste it over turkey or ham. Keep it till next summer, it tastes the same. Honey is immortal. I give them rosemary-infused apple honey on toast or a spoonful of blueberry honey collected from a neighbour earlier in the season. Try it with vanilla ice cream, I tell them. And if after a few tasters they're still unconvinced, I lean close and say, "And if you like that, you'll like my pickled apples. From my orchard, Ashmead kernel apples named for my family. Yellow-green striped with russet, drab, a bit like me. I open a jar for them. People are always amazed when food carries a legacy, and if it's yours, they're desperate for a few authentic slices of you. But the person walking up the hill and past my borage and chamomile is no tourist. My chest pinches. It's Tanith. When we were kids, she would help me with the apple picking. Then she moved to New York City to dance ballet. She used to make her way home every now and again and stop here. It's been a while, though, since her mom died. I take a jar of pickled apples off the shelf and pop it open. Tanith's favourite. She walks in, biting her lip, and my heart jumps. I almost followed her to the city for those lips, but that was a long time ago. Silver spiders through her long, golden curls. She breathes in deep, savouring the air bright with honey. God damn, Melissa, it's good to smell that again. We hug, maybe a beat longer than I would any other friend. I've got news. I hold my breath. Is she moving back? She can't quite meet my eyes. I sold the farm. It's going to be a bed and breakfast. I'm opening up a dance school in Manhattan. She looks up. I steady myself on the wall. One more farm gone. There's not much economic sense in growing carrots up here anymore, but how I used to love the sharp, grassy honey they made. My dad would drive a hive out to pollinate them so Tanith's family could collect seeds for the following year. That's great. I do my best to smile, but everything inside me is folding down, brittle and unused. I offer the jar of apples. Tanith pulls out a slice. As she crunches, juice and brine slide down her chin. She catches it and licks her finger. I can't believe it's sold. Can you imagine anyone coming out here for their vacation? What's there to see? Trees in that church in town, the one with the saints' remains, incorruptible, right? She rolls her eyes. Clearly fake. I smile, despite the pounding in my head. Yeah, nothing to see here. Never mind the mountains and lakes, farms and forests, but she knows how I feel about that. Guess again, beeswax is an excellent preservative. I've provided the wax for that saint's upkeep, I know. I gesture at the cabinets and the jars of honey, the beeswax candles and tins of balm, the mint honey lozenges, the pulled honey taffies, the wild mead with notes of anise. Bees are magic. What they make lasts forever. And wards off decay, but I stop short from telling her how the organs of Egyptian pharaohs were preserved in honey. She picks up a jar and lifts it to the window. Her face fills with the look people must get when they see actual gold. How much for 3? I hear. I don't know if I'm ever coming back. For you, free. I've given her so many gifts of honey trying to bind her to me, what's one more? But she spots the price sticker on the bottom and gets out her wallet. I will never understand why you keep bees in your house. Tourists might shudder, but how can Tanith not love bees? I don't care what she thinks, she's still a farmer. I rest my hands on the apple wood counter. So they stay cool in summer and spend their energy roaming my orchard rather than fanning in the hive. And when winter sweeps snow up to my attic window, the bees are safe. You know, urban beekeeping's a big thing in the city now. That's so. She nods, her eyes lock with mine. I want to tell her that the orchard is all I know, and, except for her, all I want. I want to say, remember when we got drunk on mead because we were too young to buy beer? Remember how you said you wanted to stay with me? I said not to worry, go and dance, the bees will take care of me. Well, I didn't mean it. Her brow tightens and she rubs her temples. You feel a storm coming? I feel it too. We glance at the sky. It's blue, but in the mountains things can change fast. The weather's supposed to be clear today. I haven't had a pressure headache like this in years, so I put my hand on her arm. Maybe you should stay. She pulls back, sucking her lip in a way that tears my ribs open. You know I shouldn't. Then hurry. You don't want to be around if a flash flood comes through that ravine. Come visit. She kisses my cheek, and I turn to her, my hand catching her jaw. I bite her lip for good measure. It might be the last time I do it. I stare after her as she backs her car down the drive. A shadow creeps over the ridge. Halfway between here and there is the ravine and the highway just beyond. I bolt the storm shutters. I'll be fine. The phone lines might go, but not the electricity. I use solar backed up by battery, and I have a well and plenty of food. I'm high on a hill where the tree roots are deep and strong, and the centenarian knolls of my apple trees have weathered plenty of storms. But that doesn't mean I have enough. Clouds shove through the mountains as rain scrapes towards my cottage. Wind tugs where it can, lightning stinging through the cracks. Lying on the floorboards, I count the beats between flashes and booms. Tomorrow the bees will go out hunting and find blossoms perked by rain. I chew some ginger honey venison jerky, crawl into bed and fall asleep thinking of Tanith winding away from home. I dream the dream where I am submerged in honey. Heavy-limbed I float as if cast in yellow glass. I can't breathe, but I don't need to. I can see, but only the honey, a pale linden sharp on my tongue. There's a constant buzz that is very nearly comforting. It's a sticky morning and the bees are even-tempered hopeful. I am not. Tanith has not called to say that she is safe. The lines are dead, so she couldn't have. I have no reason to worry, but an ice pick chips away at my stomach. I don't eat breakfast. I don't even check on the hives and deal with the new queens whose brood cells curl out from the bottom of the frame like knobbly fingers. There's a hive getting crowded that must be split soon, with the queens almost ready to hatch and swarm, but I smell too nervous for the bees. I get in my pickup and drive down the mountain, past acres of orchards and woods that belong to my family, or what's left of it, me. When I go, no one will put me in the ground. I will dry out like an old hive, and this place will go to the bees. Near to the ravine, I slam on the brakes. Around the bend are the beginnings of the bridge, all that's left of it. The middle has washed away. Rubber tracks swerve across the road to the right where the trees are toppled, their branches snapped as if something heavy disappeared down the slope. No. I throw the truck into park, jump out and run to the edge of the broken trees. Where is she? There's a car halfway down. I climb through the undergrowth and pry open the door. Tanith's eyes stare at nothing. A sapling has impaled the windshield and staked her heart. I rip branches out of her and haul her out onto the mulch. She's gone stiff. My mind empties, my body numbs. I feel only air going in and out and look at her to do the same, but she doesn't. I don't know how long I scream. Bears and coyotes, even wolves could be along soon. I wipe my face on my sleeve. I can't leave her, and I'm not getting over that ravine. I've got to take her home. Twigs clutch at me as I fumble Tanith up the hill. Don't think, just follow your feet and hands. They know what they're doing. I heave her up and lay her on the truck bed. My hands are shaking when I pull into the driveway. I hug her waist and lower her out of the truck, then barge through my shop and into my living room. Her skin is chilly as I prop her up on my couch. She sits as if listening to something perfectly interesting. I want to stroke her hair and tell her so many things. Instead, I get a bottle of Maker's Mark, dark as wildflower honey, and build a fire. She must be cold. It's only noon, but firelight deepens the house's shadow. My thoughts crisp and fry with the flames. I can't get Tanith over the bridge, but I can't bury her here either. She doesn't belong to me. I can't put her in the ice chest because it isn't big enough. I can't leave her outside, and I definitely can't leave her in here to ripen. I swig the whiskey. She may be dead, but I can save her, in a way. The bottle is empty when I get up and go to the kitchen for my whetstone and knives. I carry these and some rope and buckets from my shed down to the cellar. Then I come for her and bump her along one step at a time. Tanith's eyes are still open. I don't want to close them. I lay her on my basement floor and, kneeling, smooth hair off her forehead and stroke her cheek. I love you. There hasn't been a time when I haven't. I just wish you could have stayed. But there was no ballet here, no place to dance. I nipped the guilt in my heart. I couldn't have gone to the city. How would I have survived among so many others? I'm not a social creature. I'm not a bee. I stand. Bees need to be told of a death in the family. Once upon a time, I'd hoped Tanith would belong here. So I touch each hive and whisper to them. Guards dance through my whisky breath. Tanith is so motionless. I expect her to turn over and bite her lip, to look at me like she did when we were teenagers and there was a whole lot of apple trees to get lost in. I prepare the double boiler. I unbutton her blouse, undo her jeans, and peel her clothes off to find freckles in funny places, like secret affairs with the sun. Bits of her shimmer with glass. She's been ripped open. Where her heart should be is a red hole blooming as big and bright as a rhododendron. I tie a rope around her ankles, toss the rest over a ceiling beam, and winch her up. Below her I place a bucket, and it's not long before the gouges vine downwards and she begins to drip. I tie her hair out of the way and sink to the floor, dusty and bloody, stinging with salt. Who knew I could have such venom in my tears? There are over 4 litres of blood. We are such wet, liquid things, so red. Bees can't see red. I pretend I am a bee as I set her onto the floor and bathe her, then fill her arteries and veins with hot, clear beeswax. I spread apple honey on her lips, which I kiss once, softly, so she remembers the both of us. It takes a long time to scrub dirt, blood, and wax from under my nails. If I could rip them out, I would. The fire is coals when I leave the house with a bucket of blood and march off to pour it in the creek. When I get back, the sun is slung low. I am sweaty and my hands burn from gripping the bucket so hard. Ignoring my knee, which creaks like an apple branch, I plop onto the porch steps to watch the fireflies wink. It's cold among the shadows. I hug myself. The moon rises as full and golden as an ashmead kernel. I haven't eaten all day, and it hits like my own blood has drained out. I drag myself inside and poke around the kitchen. The idea of eating makes me feel even worse, but I need to. I'm staring into the cupboard when I hear it. Scraping. It's probably a bear sniffing around, smelling the honey. I freeze. But wait, it's coming from downstairs? Has a bear got inside? The basement door is closed. A bear wouldn't have done that. And the scraping is definitely coming from below. If whatever is down there has angered the bees, then I need to be careful. I take my beekeeper suit from its cabinet. I hardly ever wear it, but now I pull it on and check that everything is velcroed with no holes for the bees to find. Then I grab the broom. What's down there? I've never been scared of the bees, not even when I was a child. I close the door behind me. I don't want bees swarming into the house looking for a new home, especially if a queen has hatched. I pad down, heel to toe. In the middle of the floor is a frame of honeycomb, and there beside it is Tanith, sitting up and licking sticky sweetness off her fingers. Come join me. I stay fixed to the step. Did I imagine today? She is dead, isn't she? Her eyes are milky. She's covered with holes, though they aren't red like before. They've been etched in with yellow comb. Bees crawl over where her heart was pulverized by oak. Her skin is different. There's no pink to it anymore. She is golden, filled with beeswax which crusts her ears as bees fly in and out of her nose. My mouth dries up. She wobbles upright and walks towards me. I'm so sorry. I say it over and over as she wraps syrupy arms around me. She smells like sunshine, dizzying, like if I just listen to her, everything is going to be fine. I want to go outside. I never get to go outside. She takes my hand and leads me upstairs. Her legs jerk and she clutches the rail. I put my hand on the small of her back to steady her. You should get dressed. And you have too many clothes on. An old ache tugs at my belly and loins. I follow her out to where moonlight bleeds over the stars. I take off the suit and let it fall away. Hungry, finally, I open the pickled apples, tart and juicy, and offer Tanith a slice. She takes it, inspects it, sniffs. A bee zooms out of her nostril as if rudely awakened and returns at once. Tanith shakes her head. No thanks. She drops the slice back in the jar. I sit and eat the salty sweet apple, beauty to my bloodstream. Tanith swings her arms, warming muscles and wax, and twirls in the moonlight. She tries to catch it and laughs. She doesn't seem bothered by the chill or the cuts that race over her body. A leaf whips along and pastes to her thigh. You need a bath. Her hair is matted with honey and blood. She strides across the grass, bends down and kisses me. Violets, rain and earth, the smell and taste of her saturate me. I am up, my tongue trading between cold skin and warm comb. I nibble her neck and she presses herself to me. We make our way inside, up the stairs and to the bath where she lays in a tub and lets me shampoo her hair. My head chatters with things that don't make sense, but I trust my hands and my mouth, and she does too. In the morning, my bed is empty. There are crumbs of resin and a dozen dead drones in the sheets. But where is Tanith? The breeze is tossing the curtain, and one sticky footprint lingers on the sill. I pop my head outside and call her name. Up here. I grip the window and pull myself up, land a foot on the trellis and climb onto the roof. She is sitting above my window watching the sunrise. Her eyes glow, ale brown and unblinking. She's braided her hair into a crown. Legs crossed, she leans back. I sit behind her and trace the hexagons humming beneath her skin. A bee dances under her nose. There are new apple blossoms, come. I love watching them move, circles or waggles, graceful and as storied as a ballet. Out of Tanith stream vibrating wings as the bees flow towards the orchard where they will pollinate the flowers and conjure my apples. They always dance. I want to dance too. Tanith stands, not caring that we are up so high. I stretch out an arm to help her, but she brushes past and a sliver of skin tears off in my nail. I rub it beneath my fingers. She's not really Tanith, but what remains of her inside. She climbs back through my window, which I, more careful, take longer to navigate. When I get all the way downstairs, she is already outside, pirouetting amongst the trees. Bees flicker after her, squirming through the cracks in her body. She dances for hours. I examine the hives and check for more queen brood cells, but she's killed them all. Tanith keeps dancing as evening stews the sky to marmalade. Up to the porch she springs. I have something for you. She tugs at where I nipped the skin on her thigh and peels away more to reveal capped rows of honey. I catch her eye and she nods. With my fingernail I pick open a cap. Inside, amber honey bursts with sunset. I touch my tongue to it. Apple, my apples, her honey, my honey, her apples, ours. In the city we would have floated above everything, landless, the sources of our nectar lost below to secret scraps of earth. She's watching me. I press my mouth to her leg, tearing off caps with my teeth and sucking up the honey. She nests her hands in my hair and groans as I make my way up. She is not really Tanith, but she is more of her than I've had in a long time. This is how we spend the summer. Tanith dances to melodies I cannot hear. The bees find their nectar and make honey. I don't eat it all, but scrape most into sieves to filter out little legs and bits of wax or propolis. I don't talk about New York, or ballet, or the ravine with its bridge still unrepaired. The dead bees I find in the sheets I prick my wrist with to stave off arthritis. One day, when I find Tanith on the roof yet again, there is a nervous look in her eye. What's wrong? She points north where the sky is dark and tumbling, a forest fire. That's miles away, it won't reach here. I squeeze her waxy hand and she squeezes back. I can't really promise that, but I also can't do anything about it. Afternoon rain takes care of it anyway. We celebrate with a bottle of mead, and even I am dancing by the end as the hive within her thrums. Every day I want to taste more. Her eyes shine when I take my uncapping knife and chip open the honeycomb on her stomach. Wax wedges in between my teeth. As apple blossoms plump to fruit, I offer her new, sweet, sticky things. Rose syrup and lemon icing, bittersweet chocolate and merlot, homemade raspberry jam, peaches soaked in her own honey. I hold these in my mouth to tempt her, and she always answers my call. Her skin, like autumn leaves, flakes off. What replaces it is waxy, and my nails catch and scratch it. Sometimes I wake before she does to the buzz of workers busy fixing and gluing what I have crumbled in the night. I can't get the residue off my skin, nor do I try. Even as her muscles burn themselves up in dance and are swapped for combs, I eat her up too. I can't stop myself. I have hungered. I have missed her so much. My hands need her. She melts under my friction. My mouth needs her. I bite off chunks of honeycomb along her hip and fill my belly. She tastes of apple cores and copper earth, like the soul of the mountains and the skunk of the dogwood that grows near the ravine. Like clarified butter and roasted carrots, she is not Tanith, but she is the nectar of her, chewed up and condensed into honey, immortal. Her bees in the basement hive scout for new blossoms, while Tanith squirrels up candied walnuts and peanut brittle. Her lime-yellow linden honey prickles my throat. I empty her of rich, crystallizing glucose-set honey. I try not to take too much. The bees will need something for winter, though even if I do, the baby bees will eat protein right from the bodies of the workers themselves. Why should I worry? In the orchard, ashmead kernels clutter the branches. We gather the apples. I offer her bites of mine, but she declines, and in the flash of rejection I am reminded of the sting of her leaving so long ago. This Tanith wouldn't do that. She is not really Tanith, but she is mine. The days wane. I dream only of honey. Tanith's body is stiff, less flesh now than comb. I offer coats and shoes, but she refuses, says she needs to feel where she is in the air, and that being covered up confuses her sense of direction, her purpose. She studies how I empty the hives, watches the smoker with unease, but says nothing. Her bees block the entrances to her hive body and fan away the fumes they usually find so hypnotic. The bridge is fixed. The torn trees have recovered, and her car stays hidden. Cider makers come for the fruit. Tanith does not dance, but hides in the house. Perhaps that would not have happened in Manhattan. But here there is nothing for the Queen and her 60,000 children to do but eat and wait for spring. Winter comes. The hives are dull and uneventful, the bees dormant. Tanith's eyes are parched cork and her movements slow and contained. Wings whisper through her rationing energy as the bees' flowers freeze over. "I'm hungry," she says, sitting and staring mistrustfully at the fire. I offer her a bowl of sugar cubes as crisp and white as the snow. She touches one to her dry tongue, crumbles it against yellowing teeth. "What is this?" She spits it out. I hover over her. "Can I get you something else?" But she shakes her head and goes to the kitchen. I follow. She reaches into the cupboard and takes out a jar of honey. She unscrews it, raises it to her lips and drinks. She finishes it without pausing to breathe. But she doesn't do that, does she? Her eyes are softer now, warmed and sated. "Better? Or are you going to eat all my honey?" "Your honey?" Bees bullet out from her ears and nose to halo around her face. She smells different, like more than disapproval, like bananas. Is she trying to intimidate me? I almost laugh, but raise my hands instead. I'm sorry, you're right. Happy? She smiles. For now. The bees retreat and her smell lightens. I want to drown in it. I know she's trying to manipulate me with pheromones. This creature is not really Tanith. This is a walking candle that's afraid of fire. And what am I? I'm lonely. She leads me to the couch where waxy fingers hum over me as I watch the flames twist and leap. I wake up with a crick in my neck. My head is half off the couch. The house is cold and dark, the early light muted even more so by the snow that has masked the windows overnight. The fire smoulders, but I smell more than charred timber, pine needles, my smoker. I run to the basement. Emptied pots of honey lay smashed across the floor. Tanith is oozing. Dollops of honey roll out of a fissure on her shoulder from which the bone protrudes. So close to her, the smoker blankets not just the bees' alarm scent, but her scent, breaking the spell, shielding me from seeing the extent to which the hive has consumed her. Her hair is patchy and her skull split open. Nurse bees are buzz over the brood comb within. She faces me with a grin of rotten gums and eyes that are no longer golden brown, but the compound black stare of a hive. Honey drips from her mouth and the bone bowl that once held her heart. Threads of honey trail after her footsteps where shards of glass have pierced the soles of her feet. She leans in with the bellows, blowing smoke over the hive she has prized open. A few bees that are still alert try to sting her, catching their barbs in her wax and tearing open their abdomens, dying useless deaths. Her fingers race over the frames and snatch the queen, crushing her. What are you doing? I rush towards her, bracing myself for her to throw the smoker at me, but instead she sets it down and opens her arms. I stop. Come, kiss me. From her ear flows a dangerously fragrant curtain of bees. They fold around me. She dips her hand into a frame of honeycomb and beckons with a sticky claw. I am not wearing my hood or any sort of protection, just my nightshirt. Bees land on my cheeks and bare legs. She smiles, the Tanith who is not my Tanith and also not mine. Lilac and lavender float around her, massaging my vision, but I cannot unsee the truth. She paws forward, extending honeyed fingers and dabs my lips. Even if I don't lick it, it will remain there forever. Like pollen, I am embedded within its amber. I am the honey. It is what my bones are made of, my flesh, my heart too. The lindens, the apples, the thyme between the rows. The mountain air, the ravine, the storms, and all the wild blooms. And the bees. They will take care of me. I promised Tanith they would, and I was right all along. I take her hand as a bee stings my chin, another my eyelid, the back of my throat. My blood pressure drops from the surge of venom. Shakily I lie down as she guides my shoulders and begins cupping warm honey over my skin. She kisses me. There's a tickle as I open my mouth to hers. Then 6 fuzzy feet land on my tongue and nudge their way in.
My dad loves poetry. He's a pretty good poet in his own right, too, and he's also a former English teacher, and he taught me because we lived on a small island and there were 4 schools, and the public school Russian oligarchs parachuted their kids into, like the opening scene of Predators, just with more acne. So we were always going to end up in a classroom together. It was an odd time, but Andrew Marvell's work arrived in my life in that classroom, and it stuck with me to this day. Marvell, born in 1621, was tremendously fond of poetry, flowers, and sex, and found a way to combine his three loves as often as possible. His work is rich and loamy with metaphor, and at the exact moment you suspect it's going to become a rampant libido monster, it's cut through with charm and humour and wit and melancholy. There's a line in his poem To His Coy Mistress I couldn't stop thinking of when I was reading this story. The line is this: "At my back I always hear Time's winged chariot drawing near." The yearning of our hapless protagonist, the awful situation he finds himself in, the way he dances on the flaking, waxy edge of the honeycomb cell that divides sweet and chaste and kind from terrifying and obsessive. He is being driven by the ticking clock of his heart and of the seasons and of gentrification. His choice is horrific, but it's born from something close to good, I'd argue, even if the result is, well, Tanith's transformation could have been played as titillating, but she buzzes with energy and power and agency. She feels familiar and alien all at once. The way her vitality ebbs and flows with the seasons gives the story a waxy, flaky edge of dull ache, and I was constantly impressed by the use of sensation here. This is a story as rich and unctuous as the fluid at its core, and like that fluid, it never quite stops moving. It never quite gives us a clear view. Is the ending horrific? Yes. Is the ending romantic? Again, I'd say yes. Is it just desserts or unfair? That one I'm less sure on. All we know is the buzzing, the sensation of movement where there should be none, and the smell of honey. Thanks to all. Hey, did you know this show is part of a 5-show network? I did, which is fortunate really, given my position. We have EscapePod, which does science fiction, PseudoPod, which does horror, which is very nearby, Podcastle, which does fantasy, Cast of Wonders, which does YA, and Catscast, which does stories about cats. It's an amazing team of people, and as I enter the first straight of my 16th consecutive year doing this, I am stunned and honoured to work with them all. And with you, because you're on the team as well. You're a vital part of it. We rely on you to pay our authors and cover our server costs and every other cost, frankly. We're now at the point where we're paying everyone, and that's a major benchmark because we believe everyone who works in this field should be paid for the time they give to this field. Without any element of our staff, from editors to authors to hosts to producers to slush readers and associate editors, the whole system collapses. Everyone is needed. Everyone needs to be paid. That's where you come in. We know things are tough. We know things are getting tougher. But if you can help out, please do. You can donate any amount you want or start from $5 a month through PayPal and Patreon. That gets you access to the support bonus content, including a whole mass of PseudoPod episodes we call extrusions, and extra episodes of Catscast. It's a really good deal. You give us some money, we use that money to make things. You get things for giving us that money, and then you also get the things we've been able to buy and help make because of the money you've given us. Like I say, it's pretty sweet. If you can help out financially, please do. It really is needed. If you can't help out financially, please don't beat yourself up over it. There are other ways you can assist. If you liked a story, please link to it. Blog about it. People still do that. I did check. Leave a review on whatever podcatcher you use. That one's vital. That one really, really helps. Anything to help our discoverability, because the more people discover us, the more people listen to us, the more people get great stories, and conceivably the more people donate to help keep us going. And that all starts with you. So, whether it's money or time, please help out. We do need it. We'll be back next week with Ido Menja by Erish Young, hosted by the amazing monster she wrote, produced by Chelsea, and read by the equally amazing Steph Bianchini. It'll also be, as it is now, a production of Escape Artists Incorporated and released under a Creative Commons Attribution, Non-Commercial, No Derivatives license. and it will surprise none of you to know that this week's closing quote comes once again from To His Coy Mistress by Andrew Marvell. Thus, though we cannot make our sun stand still, yet we will make him run. We'll see you next week, folks. Have fun.
It's a PseudoPod. It's a big foot.
It's all about podcasts these days.